For fairness' sake, the order of candidates speaking on each question will be rotated. Following a brief intermission, we will pose additional questions that you, the audience, are going to provide. The questions should be of a general nature so that all three candidates have a chance to answer them. The number of questions we're able to handle will depend on the time available. The candidates will have 1 minute to briefly answer each question. At the end, each candidate will be given an opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement. If the candidate exceeds the time allowed at any stage, and you'll all be able to see the timekeeper's timer, I will ask the next candidate to proceed. So please stay within your time limits. When you entered the theater, you were given a piece of paper on which you can write your questions. These can be given to Deb Schenk, who will be at the back initially, but will come to the front during the intermission. Koshin and Jeff will select as many as we can in the time remaining for a response. At the conclusion of tonight's forum, there will be an opportunity to meet the candidates in the front hallway. I need to point out that we have to vacate the premises here by 9 o'clock to allow the cleaning staff to complete their work. It's now my pleasure to introduce the candidates. In alphabetical order by party, we have Dr. Marina Sapozhnikov, representing the Conservative Party. Mr. David Evans, representing the Green Party. And Mr. Dana Lajeunesse, representing the New Democratic Party. We'll now begin with the opening statements. Again, by alphabetical order of party name, please welcome Dr. Marina Sapozhnikov.
Hello. I am very grateful that you invited me here, and I am very grateful that you came all here to listen to us. Interestingly enough, my biggest accomplishment in life, I consider coming to Canada. It took me 20 years, more time and more effort than it took me to obtain my medical degree. I was born in the Soviet Union, in Ukraine, and spent there 30 years of my life. I'm a medical doctor, and on my quest to come into Canada, I immigrated to Israel in 1990. I learned a new language, I confirmed my medical degree again, and I spent there 15 years working as a doctor. But I still was intent to come to Canada. Eventually, in 2004, I was able to immigrate to Canada. I learned a new language and confirmed my medical degree as well. Since then, I have been working until a few months ago, until I decided to retire and pursue my new adventure, running for political office. I was commonly asked why I am running for a political party. And most important reasons are two. First comes from my past. I come from the party where there was no democracy and there was no freedom. And some things you learn to appreciate only when you lose them. And this is why, when I started democracy vanishing around me in Canada, I couldn't stay and do nothing. The other reason comes from my profession. In the last few years, the healthcare started disintegrating fast. I started seeing patients with cancer and heart problems that couldn't get timely treatment. I started seeing parents who were grieving their children who succumbed to drug overdose. I started seeing young children, teenagers, that were addicted to drugs. At some point, it was too much. I was sitting there, helpless. I was not able to help my patients. I was watching them to suffer, and I couldn't take it anymore. Then I decided to retire and pursue my new adventure. And this is I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Now, Mr. David Evans will give his opening statement.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to be here. My name is David Evans, and I've been on this theater stage hundreds of times, whether it was for Shakespeare or some British farce or some musical theater. I'm a huge supporter of arts and culture, music and heritage, and I really think that tonight, coming together, all of us with our different points of view, it's a great moment for community. Whether we agree or not matters less than the fact that we're doing something together, and we will all have this memory. And when you look back and remember that was a speech before David was elected, we'll have this moment to share. So I get a couple of questions all the time. I get, who are you and why are you running? Who am I? David Evans. I've lived in Sooke for 25 years. I raised my family here on a small farm in Otter Point. When my now ex-wife and I separated, we moved into Sooke itself. For the past 30 or the past 35 years or so, I've been self-employed. That means I've been supporting my family, paying my mortgage on paychecks that I wrote to myself in a number of industries. So I know a thing or two about economics. I know a thing or two about how the world works and how businesses work. My business you might know me for is called the Stick in the Mud Coffee House. I opened that in 2007. Last year I sold it to a community co-op, and there could not have been a better succession than passing that on to the community to make sure that that hub was not lost, that community focal point was still there. I did maintain ownership of the coffee roasting facility, the Stick in the Mud Roastorium. I stepped away from that a few months ago in order to pursue this full-time, and believe me, it's full-time. We can all attest to how many hours we're driving around the riding and trying to meet people. As far as why I'm running, I'd like to distill this. I mean, it's a long answer, but if I can make it short, I would say it's because I want a better quality of politician. I'm sick and tired of the representation we've had, not just in this riding, but federally, and everywhere you look, there are poor class of politicians. On this stage tonight, there are three options, and I'm not trying to put them down, and I won't, please, let me. But I really think there's only one progressive choice. I really think that's the Green Party, and I really think that it's summed up in this document. This is our policy platform. It's not a platform based on economic growth. It's not a platform based on industrial extraction. It's a policy based on well-being and how we need to do things in order to have a good, full life full of quality. You need more than just an economic measure. That's what this is all about. There are some things that are not controversial in this province, and one of them is whether neighbors should be pitted against one another, arguing questions like, is old growth worth more standing? The number on that is that I think 86% of the province believes it is worth more standing. That's not controversial. 92% of the province believes that climate change is real. In any case, my name is David Evans. I'm the BC Greens candidate, and I look forward to being your progressive choice in the legislature. Thank you.
Dana.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many smiling faces, although it's really hard to see any of you because these lights are kind of bright. But I just want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank the organizers of this event and my fellow candidates over here. As many of you know, my name is Dana Lajeunesse, and I'm a lifelong resident of Sooke, and I grew up in Jordan River. I'm a third-generation resident, in fact. I have a very strong connection to this community and to the South Island in general. In 2019, I was elected to Sooke City Council, and I've served there since then. And I've done a lot of work in terms of economic development because I feel that's one of the things that our community's been lacking for a long time. During my time in the district of Sooke and in local government, I've spent a lot of time talking with the ministers in the provincial government, and I've learned a lot about how provincial government works. And I intend to maintain the relationships that I've built with local government officials from all across the province. I've made some very good, long-lasting friendships there. And the reason that I decided to run here is because I think there'd be very few of us in this room who couldn't say that John Horgan was a very good friend or is a very good friend to all of us. And I believe that he did a lot of great work for us, and I want to continue John's legacy. And just one last thing that I'd like to add is that during my 61 years in this area, I can tell you that the only times in my lifetime that I've seen any kind of significant investment in infrastructure in this on the island is when we've had an NDP government in power. And I intend to see that continue. So thanks very much, and I look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you, David. So this is beginning the round of the 5 pre-selected questions. The first question deals with affordability, housing, and cost of living. And I'll read it out here. It's on the screens as well. But many in our area are faced by high housing prices, barely affordable rents, and the rising cost of living. Individuals and families are challenged to the point where some are at risk of homelessness. What will you do to help alleviate these problems? And again, we're rotating the order. The people are going to be responding, so I'm going to ask David if you can be the first to respond to this specific question.
Thank you very much. On the watch of BC's two-party political system over the past generation or so, we have seen housing become a commodity rather than just a place to live. There's a lot in that question. I want to focus on one of it. Our policy document covers this in 3 or 4 pages, but I just want to focus on renters. 30% of BC residents live in rental accommodations, and they are about the most vulnerable. Rental costs have increased 20% in just 2 years, while wages have a couple of percent. I really do feel that families in that 30% of the population are the most vulnerable, and they're the ones who are preyed upon by what has become a predatory rental market. In order to make housing back into homes, we need to do a few things. Number one, I think this is really important, it's more federal, but the province can play a role, and that is curtailing real estate investment trusts. A REIT is essentially a hedge fund that buys rental properties and pays profit to shareholders by increasing rents. So we can do that a couple of ways. Federal legislation is probably the easiest. We also have to protect existing affordable housing and encourage nonprofit organizations to manage them and to have a right of first refusal on sales. That can be done through grants, through loan guarantees, whatever it takes to get housing into the hands of nonprofits is necessary to do. We need to scale up non-market housing through BC Housing, through cooperatives, through social housing. Again, whatever it takes. We are in a crisis. And we need to, this is important, we need to stop expecting the market to build below market housing. To expect someone to build a home and sell it for less than it's worth is magical thinking. That won't happen. There is a role for government. We must subsidize housing, at the entry level at least. I think we need to implement vacancy control. I think that's crucial. Rent increase limits between tenancies needs to be controlled to protect people from rent evictions and gouging. Again, most mom and pop landlords are very honorable people, but the REITs are the ones we're concerned about. I refer you to pages 24 through 27 of the platform. That's our housing and cost of living part of the platform. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Dana, you now have a chance. By the way, the knocking that my timekeeper is giving, that's a 15-second warning. So,
one more thing.
Okay, I don't think should come as a surprise to anyone that housing is an issue all across the country and the continent, in fact. And I firmly believe that housing is a basic human right and that everyone deserves to have a roof over their head and that we are not going to fix this housing crisis by building less housing. That's why I'm proud of the work that the NDP government has been doing to create more housing. And as a local government official for the last 5 years, one of the things that has become abundantly clear is that we need to look at where we provide this housing and build densification where the infrastructure can support it. And one of the things that I intend to work on, I'll be in the housing minister's office often to discuss these issues in terms of rural communities. As your MLA, I want to find that balance, and one of the things that I'm very pleased to hear, I've been frustrated over the years that whenever people talk about affordable housing, everybody thinks rental right away. And while rental is one component of housing that is very necessary, I'm pleased to hear that in our platform, we're looking at pathways toward home ownership for people so that young people can start to build some equity and actually get ahead in life. And I think that is key to the future for our younger generations. So I'm very pleased with that, and I support it 100% and will continue on that vein. So thank you. I have 15 seconds left, but I don't need it.
Marina.
Sorry. The cost of living is one of the most pressing issues in the province. The NDP inherited 2.7 billion surplus and turned it into 9 billion deficit just in a few years, with nothing to show for it and no end in sight. Healthcare, infrastructure, education are all underfunded. This year, many parents were forced to pay for their children to ride the school bus to school. BC Conservatives will focus on growing the private sector jobs, including a Made in BC manufacturing initiative and carbon tax, which stifles the economy, attract international investment by reducing the red tape. All these measures will reduce the tax burden and increase purchasing ability. Our housing policies include immediate tax relief starting in budget 2026. The rebate will move BC income taxes from $3,000 per month of housing costs, including rent, mortgage interest, and strata fees, offering significant relief to both renters and homeowners. We will implement proactive planning. The Conservative Party is committed to working with cities to pre-zone areas in advance, eliminating delays, costing a lot of money, and causing a lot of unpleasant surprise for the residents of Sooke. The way to improve the welfare of British Columbians is to revive the economy, to be able to pay for our healthcare, education, social programs, and invest more into environmental initiatives. Revitalize and restore, we need to revitalize and restore our resource sector, forestry, mining, agriculture, and tourism industry. Thank you.
Our second question relates to health care. Better put the glasses on. We're grateful the province is funding a community health center in Sooke's town center. How else will you help this riding deal with a myriad of health and social welfare matters, among them long-term care, mental health, addictions, and medical emergency response? First off, I'm going to ask Dana if he can give a response.
Healthcare is an issue that we hear a lot about lately, and our healthcare system has been through some challenges, as we all know. The center, the comprehensive healthcare center, that John Horgan promised as his last promise as our premier, I intend to see that built. And as a member of Sooke Council, I've worked diligently on this project, and I intend to see it through. My biggest concern with that is that the John Rustad has promised $4.1 billion in cuts to healthcare, and I'm afraid that this will be on the chopping block. It'll be one of the first things that goes. Last week, or 10 days or so ago, I toured the new hospital that's under construction in the Cowichan Valley. Beautiful facility. I was there with the premier, and I'm just so happy to see that we're bringing healthcare services closer to where people live, and to prevent people having to travel great distances to get the care that they need. And we've been busy hiring more doctors, 800 doctors in the last year alone, and connecting more and more people with family doctors and nurse practitioners. We're also training more doctors by building a new medical school in Surrey, and we've added extra seats, a bunch of extra seats actually, to the UBC school in Vancouver, and continuing to train new healthcare practitioners is a big step toward solving the issues that we have. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Marina.
That's an issue that's very close to my heart. That's the issue that actually made me come into politics. Who thinks that healthcare is free in this province? For those who do, I can share with you that we spent $31 billion just this fiscal year alone on healthcare. If we had 800 doctors, net influx of doctors today, the problem with the family doctors would be solved right now. Meanwhile, we have 1 million people, residents of BC, not having a family doctor. So I don't know where those 800 doctors went. There is another thing, sorry, just give me some extra time. I'm fighting with this microphone. So we spend 11% of our GDP on healthcare, more than 27 other comparable countries. Yet we are the number 26 on 28 on number of doctors and number 14 out of 24 on number of nurses. So the way we propose to change the situation is to free doctors and nurses from the burdens of administration and let them out to be able to work free with patients. And this is why we introduce the patient-first model. I would like to spend 30 seconds to straight the record straight. Nowhere, I repeat, nowhere in our policies we said that we're going to have any cuts, budget cuts from our health policies. I don't know where this $4 billion number came from. I have never seen it, and I don't know where it comes from. And this upsets me. So I would like to explain how our healthcare policy will work, and maybe I'll elaborate when I have more time in the questions. It will be based on patients first, and the money will flow following the patient. And I will elaborate, hopefully, when I ask more questions specifically. Thank you.
Can I take this off the stand so
Yes.
we can both use it? Is it okay with you to have it off? Okay. Maybe I can. Okay. Yeah, okay. So why so small, the ideas? One idea is throw money at it, and one idea is to ship patients down to Washington State or Alberta. Why not reestablish a system here in BC that we can be proud of? Why are some of us afraid of the idea of making our system actually work better, work like it used to work? You know, Greens, we take good ideas wherever they come from, and I've got a good one from Dr. Jane Philpott. You may remember her. She left the Trudeau Liberal cabinet back when there was integrity in politics over the SNC-Lavalin affair. She wrote a book, Health for All, A Doctor's Prescription for a Healthier Canada, and we're borrowing from it. We're calling it the Dogwood Model, and it is essentially a home base for healthcare all across the province. We're going to start, 93 is a good number because there's 93 ridings. We plan a series of community health centers across the BC providing access to doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, mental health professionals, and specialists like dietitians, physiotherapists under one roof, under one administration. We agree on that. Too much administration. I mean, the economies of scale by having all these people operating under one roof are great. You'll be saving resources from data entry, time management, admin, real estate. Now, it's not mandatory if you have a provider who opts out of the community health center model, out of our Dogwood model of regional hubs, that's fine. But we do need an option, a public option, and something we can be proud of. something to serve us, to serve us all. And I refer you to pages 9 through 13 of the BC Greens platform, available at bcgreens.ca.
Thank you, David. Our next question relates to community economic development. What specific strategies or initiatives would you implement to promote sustainable economic growth in our community, particularly in supporting local businesses and attracting new investment? Marina, we're asking you to go first, please.
A recent poll released by BC Chamber of Commerce showed that half of the respondents believe that BC is headed in the wrong direction. In large part, it is related to the devastation of small business in the last several years. Conservative Party committed to making BC the #1 jurisdiction for starting and operating a small business in Canada, recognizes that small businesses are the backbone of provincial economy. Small business owners are the real heroes of BC's community, but the NDP had burdened them with unnecessary taxes, red tape, and crime in downtown cores. For local development, we need to invest in agriculture, tourism, in retail, and construction. These are the main drivers of our economy in this riding. And many of the owners of these industries are small business operators. The Conservative Party of BC will reduce the small business taxes, giving entrepreneurs the best chance to succeed. Crack down on crime to ensure the safety of businesses, employees, and customers. Target municipalities to reduce approval times for business licenses by publishing benchmark and wait times to hold municipalities accountable. Open the bidding process to all qualified contractors and workers. Ensures fairness for all British Columbians. All businesses should be able to compete for government projects. BC Conservatives also released comprehensive policies on development of agriculture, which are available on our website, which I highly recommend to visit and see our policies on all aspects of our lives. Thank you.
David. Here. Yep.
Thanks. So you might be aware that community economic development is pretty close to my heart, and I really wonder, what government can do to encourage people to invest in small businesses. The #1 reason I lost employees was because of housing. My staff couldn't find housing. So it was insecurity, it was doubt. That's what caused them to move away from Sooke and to stop working for me. There was a time when I had 3 cafes. It was the Stick, it was the New Branch, and it was Speed Stick around the corner. And I would lose staff because they couldn't find anywhere to stay. So what government can do is they can provide predictability. They can provide a level of social infrastructure that we can rely on. And if we can rely on social infrastructure, then we can make investments. And what do I mean by that? I mean affordable housing, reliable transit, available healthcare, just a general level of predictability. When people invest in business, and I know this quite well, we don't look at we look at the horizon. We don't look behind us. We maybe have a glance. We don't look at the present. We look 5 and 10 years out. And if we see predictability, we invest. That's how economic development happens, is that predictability in the market. So government's got to provide that level, and that's how all of us plan for the future, not just businesses. What we don't need is that pendulum swing from one side to the next. We need a few more parties in the provincial legislature to sort of moderate that swing, because I can't find this to be predictability, but I can work with that. Absolutely, I can work with that. Yeah, there's more to say, but 2 minutes is very daunting, so I'm just going to say that refer to page 60. It's all in here, page 60 of the BC Greens policy platform, available at bcgreens.ca. Thanks.
Dana.
So economic development has been a big part of my life for several years. I've sat on countless economic development committees in Sooke over the last 15 or so years. I was a member of the board, the Sooke Region Chamber for a few years. We would get together and discuss ideas at every meeting, every monthly meeting. The bunch of us would get together and talk about all these great ideas, but we never had an administrator to carry any of these ideas that we discussed forward. So when I was elected to Sooke Council in 2019, one of the first things that I insisted upon was that we hire a community economic development officer, which we did. And she has been working on some incredible initiatives that are about to bear fruit in the coming months. And some of them you will have heard about, but there's much left to do. One of the reasons that economic development is so important in this region is that 86% of our population has to commute outside the community to work every day. And that is a huge contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions, the biggest sole contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions. And so it's crucially important that we get people working closer to where they live. It improves quality of life, more family time, less daycare time, all of that. What I want to see is have more people working closer to home, spending their lunch money locally to support all of our local businesses and help them to grow and thrive as well. Thank you.
Our next question relates to climate action, emergency preparedness, and wildfires. The Sooke Potholes Old Man Lake wildfire highlighted the JDF Malahat's vulnerability to a major disaster, and climate-driven incidences have dramatically impacted our region. How will you assist the riding prepare for future emergencies? The first up for that is David.
My worry is that a slow-moving government will be forced to react to the climate challenges, and they won't be forced by us. They'll be forced by the insurance companies who refuse to insure the risks of houses, of infrastructure, of any projects we take on. However, we still need to mitigate and talk about mitigating risks because they are coming. You probably heard Hurricane Milton hitting ground probably today. Category 5 storm went from Category 1 to Category 5 in a day. 2 weeks ago, Hurricane Helene. So we need to implement strategies to mitigate the damage of fires, of floods, of extreme heat and extreme cold. We need to build response capacity at all levels, and we need to implement, frankly, the UN's Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And essentially the Sendai framework is having trained people ready to go to address the disaster when it comes, to rectify after the fact and get life back to normal. We need to protect communities from fire and flood through better forestry management. That's an obvious one. Through fuel treatment in the forests and recognizing that mature primary forests do the best at mitigating flood and fire. We need to restore habitat and protect biodiversity as well. And underlying all of this, of course, is the need to slow climate change and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We need to transition to renewables as soon as possible, wherever possible, however possible. There's so much that can be done. And I refer you to pages 48 and 49 of the BC Greens Party platform. It's available at bcgreens.ca.
Marina.
Conservation is a core value for the BC Conservative Party. We live in the most beautiful part of the world, and we are committed to keep it pristine for generations to come. The BC Conservative Party will maintain the ecological integrity of BC forests by implementing innovative forestry practices, which include selective harvesting, which will reduce the wildfire risk and align with conservation goals. Wildfires pose a significant threat to BC forests, communities, and the economy. The BC Conservative Party will reintroduce controlled burns, avoid monoculture when possible, and create borders of wetter tree species which will act as fire breaks and other preventative measures to reduce wildfire risk, protect watersheds and communities. We're strongly committed to restoring areas damaged by wildfires in recent years. The BC Conservatives are also committed to clean energy and moving away from fossil fuels. Currently, 86% of energy in BC is derived from hydrocarbons, which include oil, gas, and wood. Solar and wind power only account for less than 5% of the power supply. Hydro generates only 16%. It will increase to 18% with size C. In our quest for innovation, BC Conservative Party will invest in most advanced new energy sources to make BC energy independent and reduce the emissions. A vital part of the emergency preparedness plan is securing evacuation routes, which are currently grossly inadequate. It brings us back to upgrading of the existing routes and constructing new ones. The plans for upgrading the roads are already in existence, and at this point, what is required is only the political will to implement them. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana.
So, as I mentioned, I've lived here my entire life, and in my former life, when I was much taller, I worked in the forest industry, and during that time, I had the opportunity to actually fight wildfires myself, and I can tell you that it's not a lot of fun. Climate change is real. There's no question about that. I hope that no one in this room doesn't believe that. And I think that over time, the risk of wildfires has only increased and will continue to increase. And so we need to take steps to mitigate the risk and also to plan for emergencies that could happen as a result of wildfires. We were lucky this last summer with the Old Man Lake wildfire in that it began to the east of our community, because the prevailing winds, as we all know, those of us who have been here for a while, come from the west, and so it carried the fire away from us. But that doesn't mean it couldn't happen on the west side of our community, and that would put us at real risk. And so I will continue to support the work that Fire Safe BC is doing, and to educate people about fire safe and about using our wilderness as a recreation center. I think we hear a lot about whenever there are fires. Most of the fires, if there's no lightning storm, are human caused. There's no question about it. So we need to educate people on how to behave when they're out recreating in our forest lands. I'm also very proud of the provincial government, the BC NDP government, because they've introduced the first ever Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Resilience. And BC NDP's Climate Action Plan is the most aggressive climate action plan in the country. Thank you.
The last of our pre-prepared questions deals with the issue of traffic congestion, which I know that everyone's interested in. Traffic tie-ups on the provincial highways serving the Sooke region have become a challenging fact of local life. What steps will you, as our provincial representative, take to ease congestion and improve road infrastructure while dealing with the impacts of current and future community growth? Dana, I'm going to ask you to go first on this one. I messed up the order last question, so sorry.
Is there a traffic problem? I do travel outside of Sooke on occasion myself, and I've been caught in it many times, and it's been an issue that's been developing over a period of years. We're working to mitigate the issue with traffic, and it's a complicated issue because it's been neglected for years. But as I mentioned before, the BC NDP is the only party that ever invests in infrastructure in this province. And I will be in the Minister of Transportation's office every day, if that's what it takes, to get us the help we need here. We have an aggressive housing plan to provide the housing that we need for people, and we need the infrastructure to go along with that. So I will be a huge advocate for that. Where am I? I have to look at my notes here. About a month and a half ago, I was in View Royal with the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Rob Fleming, to introduce the construction of the priority bus lanes that go from View Royal into downtown Victoria. That's a huge step toward making transit more convenient for people. We need people to consider alternate ways of getting around. And I've taken the bus myself a few times lately, and it's really getting good. I know that there are some challenges with frequency and to getting people where they need to be when they need to be there, but I think we need to continue to invest and improve our transit system and make it convenient, make it sexy for more people to use. Thank you.
Marina. Yeah.
Everybody in this room knows, I think, that before you build a house, you need to build a road, except for this government. The Sooke population has doubled in the last 15 years to over 15,000 people. What has been done to date by the NDP has not worked to ease growing traffic congestion or increase transportation links to this area, and we're still one road in and one road out. It is time to consider other options, such as more dedicated commuter buses, or second bridge, or an all-weather road from Shawnigan Lake to Port Renfrew. Large investment in the infrastructure is needed on federal, provincial, and municipal level. On provincial level, Highway 14 needs to be upgraded, as well as the road to Port Renfrew and Up Island. On municipal level, there is a need to streamline traffic inside Sooke. Bypass has been in the consideration for the last 30 years, but nothing has been done. There are plans to upgrade the Highway 14, but they're not implemented because this government is not interested in building roads. To be able to reduce the commute, we need to bring jobs and services into Sooke. But to do so, improving and building new roads and capital investments into highways are necessary. And this brings us to square one. We need to think about alternate routes, and as your MLA, I will advocate for solutions. Another part of this problem is that public transportation is not up to date, and buses are so full at peak hours that at times they pass by bus stops without picking up people. People are late for work and school. This needs to be addressed, and some of the routes need to be equipped with more double-deckers buses, at least during the rush hours. Our plans for investment into provincial and local infrastructure are clearly outlined in our website. Thank you.
David.
Yeah, I don't think we need a mega project. I don't think we need that at all. We don't need 4 lanes from John Muir to Jacqueline Road. That, I think, would be a big mistake. In the province, number 2 or number 3 cost for families is transportation, depending on how much they're paying on food. It's housing, transportation, and food. So again, you probably know the BC Green Party. We propose fast, frequent, free transit across the province and to increase transit where there is none and double it where there is. That does say Sooke up there, but our riding is Juan de Fuca-Malahat. Sooke Road has over 40 buses a day coming to it. Over the Malahat, it's as high as 6. Don't know why, but we could really alleviate some traffic if we increase that. There is much in our platform, but it's all here. I'll tell you the pages in a sec. But talking locally, I mean, there's low-hanging fruit, and I think the first thing we need is to have an MLA who is an ally of the municipality, and an ally of Metchosin, and an ally of all the regional districts, rather than an adversary. We don't need the ministries, any ministry, whether it's housing, whether it's transportation, whether it's education, telling Sooke, you must increase density. We won't move the schools, that you're not ready for a highway. We need someone to advocate for us, to say to the ministers, actually, you're out of line. You're being a little condescending, and quite honestly, that's not what government's supposed to do. You're supposed to serve us. We elected you. There is much to be done. We need to remember that, well, I talk about what John Horgan's legacy on the highway, and I call it akin to minimum wage. You know, we got $80 million worth of safety upgrades. Should we have to clamor for safety upgrades? Should we have to beg the government to get the bare minimum, or should we expect more? A really quick solution on the highway is a transit lane. No one's going to catch a bus that's idling in front of them, but if it's passing them on the right every 7 or 8 minutes, they'll be thinking, that's a pretty good idea. I might do that next time. We don't all need to take the bus, but no one will take a bus that doesn't exist. Oh. Pages 28 and 29, right here.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and this is your opportunity, if you haven't already done so, to submit your written questions. You can just bring them up to the front here, and at the end of the break, we are randomly going to select questions as time allows and give the candidates 1 minute each to respond quickly to your questions. So we'll see you back in 10 minutes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deb with the Sooke Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all so much for coming out and making sure you're making an informed vote. You all put your questions in, and that was way more than I expected, so thank you for your thoughtfulness and for coming out, and we'll continue with this forum. Thank you.
At this point, Kosheen is going to pick randomly questions. All right, and trust my ability to read it. Okay. All right, this question is for all three of you. If you don't win this election, how will you be spending your time with regards to social and political activism? The first one to respond is Marina.
The answer is very simple. If I don't win this election, I go back to work. And I'm going to continue fighting for my patients the same way I have been doing it before. And I hope that the Conservative Party will win, and then we will be implementing our patients first policy, and then things will be much better for all of us sitting here. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
I mean, who doesn't love a rhetorical question? If that happens, I'll do more of the same. I mean, in the past several months, driving up and down this riding, I've been meeting all kinds of interesting people, and there are friendships and bonds that have been made. I will absolutely keep this up. There are great ideas in every one of those 72 pages, and I will advocate for all of those. I'm green to the core. This isn't a fad. This isn't a fancy. It's not a facade. This is something I truly believe in. I truly believe there's a way forward for our society, and it's the Green Party.
Thank you. Dana.
I'm going to give a very brief answer to this question. I will continue my work on Sooke Council to make Sooke the best community in the country.
All right. Is there any update on the new health center? There has been no update in 18 months, and it is notionally to be completed this year, or next year, sorry. Meanwhile, our population has continued to grow without accessible health care. What specifically would you do to improve this? So we have David to start the responses.
Yeah, I actually heard of a patient asking a doctor at the clinic here in Sooke, when's the health center coming? And the doctor actually laughed and said, no. Yeah, it was a nice promise, but that's something about politicians is you shouldn't trust their promises. What will we do to get it? It's part of our platform. We absolutely intend to enact the 93 community health hubs across the province. That's important to us, the Dogwood model. It's in it's in the platform. You've seen it. So yeah, I mean, to be clear, I'm going to be an opposition MLA. I'm not going to be a cabinet minister. I'm not going to form government. I will be the one who will advocate for you. I'll be standing up when you say, "Where's a healthcare center?" I'll be going, "Yeah, where is that healthcare center?" Rather than coming to you and apologizing, "I'm sorry, there's no healthcare center yet." That's the advantage of having an opposition MLA.
Dana. Whoop.
I thought she was going to attack me there for a second. So I can't speak too much about the healthcare center because there are some issues to do with that are in camera currently, but I can assure you that it is moving forward, and I will ensure that it gets completed as your MLA. Thank you.
Marina.
Unfortunately, this is how things are going in this province, and this is not the only project that has not been completed on time and that has not been completed on budget. There is another problem with this center is who is going to work there? Because we don't have enough people, and this government is doing not a good job to attract more healthcare providers in this to this province. And if we had 5, 6, 7 more doctors, they actually could work from this clinic for the existing clinic and run it 24/7 and reduce commute and reduce patients' travel and sit in emergency for 16 years. I definitely will advocate for our patients first policy when funding follows the patients, when things are getting built on time and patients are being treated.
Thank you. Next question. What about Fairy Creek? It's not directly related inside our writing, but it's a question from the audience that they're interested in. So, Dana, you're to go first with this one.
What about Fairy Creek? I think the BC NDP government has protected thousands and thousands of hectares of old growth forest in the previous term. And as a former logger myself, I have a deep connection with the forest. And I've never met a logger who didn't love trees. That's just a fact. We all need to take care of our environment, and as we deal with forest issues, we need to keep in mind that it's important that we stay in close contact with our First Nations partners and work with them to deal with our forest issues. Thank you.
Marina, if you can now respond. Yes.
Forest is our province's biggest treasure. We have about 60 million of forested land in this province, and 2/3 of this land, of this forest, is not going to be ever logged according to BC conservative policies. 2/3 of this land will not be forested. 1/3 of this land will be logged, and the biodiversity will be preserved as it is right now. And we absolutely, there is no need for us to continue logging the old forest, and we can preserve it for future generations.
David.
You won't be surprised. We have this on page 45 of the policy platform. I'll just read until the time stops. Well, first of all, I was in Shawnigan Lake today. I was meeting with a classroom of grade 4 and 5 students. And they said, what about Fairy Creek? I was there, this 8-year-old girl. And I said, yeah, me too. And we high-fived, and that was great. So protect old-growth primary forests, Fairy Creek off the table. Implement all 14 recommendations of the Old-Growth Strategic Review in partnership with First Nations. Defer harvesting in the most at-risk old-growth forests as outlined by the Old-Growth Technical Advisory Panel. Fully fund the protection of old forests and compensate First Nations for any lost revenue due to deferrals. Implement effective targets for old and mature forest retention and improve riparian protection province-wide as an interim strategy. Look, it goes on. There are some problems with what I just heard about the Conservatives. I won't talk about it now, but hit me up later if you want to find out something. That's page 45 of the BC Greens platform.
Okay, you got two, so I'm going to take this one. I think this question relates very closely to the previous one. It's what do you feel about preserving old growth trees? So I'm going to allow that the response for about Fairy Creek does give an adequate response to that. How does your party feel about COVID vaccinations? That's not a controversial issue at all. Marina, I believe you're first up for this one.
I don't think that as a party we have feelings about COVID vaccinations. So the way we feel about COVID vaccinations and any other vaccinations is that we need to follow science where the science leads us. We cannot bend science into pretzel to make it go where we want it to go. And as a doctor, I have never given medical advice to 5 million people. We give medical advice to one person at a time. There is no such a thing in medicine as one size fits all. And politics have to be taken out of medicine, and doctors should be allowed to exercise their medical professional opinion freely. Thank you.
I actually agree with some of that, which is good. It's very good, the fact that we have common ground there. Look, there's currently no vaccine mandate in British Columbia. We support that. If faced with a similar situation, which is pretty unlikely, but if it happens again, we will react the exact same way. We will use the best science available at the moment. We'll make sure the information is available to all people who require it, who want it. Yeah, we will support what the public health officer recommends. That's why we have a public health officer. There's no specific page for that, but I'm sure you want to check it out, bcgreens.ca.
Dana.
How do we feel about vaccines? It's interesting. I was talking to a relative just yesterday, in fact, who had polio when he was young, and he's a few years older than I am, obviously. And I said, well, isn't it unfortunate that we didn't have the vaccine just a few years sooner? Because he struggled with polio his entire life. And my generation didn't have to deal with that. And that's thanks to medical science and vaccines. And so, am I in favor of vaccines? You bet I am. Thank you.
What will you do about addressing climate change? For that question, it's David who goes first.
Yeah, a lot of that question was asked earlier in mitigating the climate risks. What will we do to address climate change? I guess we got to provide the framework so that people understand the real dangers that are facing us. I don't think people will make... Here's the problem. We live in a society where the wrong decision is quite often the easy decision. It's way easier to buy something from Amazon and have it come to your door the next morning than it is to go to the store. It's way easier to get in your car and drive to the grocery store and then to the post office and then to the stick in the mud and then back home than it is to park and walk or to ride your bike. We've built a system that makes climate change almost inevitable because of how we're living. We're living in single occupancy vehicles in large homes that require heating. We've just got to change the way we look at the world. I really think we need to make the right choice easier.
Dana.
Obviously, climate change is an issue for all of us. We all share the same climate and the same globe, and I believe the climate scientists. And the Clean BC Act is the most aggressive climate action plan in the country, and I'm proud to say that that was brought in by the BC NDP, along with help from the Greens, actually, when they were working together. And so we need to continue on that path, and education is key to all of these issues. Thank you.
Marina.
The climate change has been going on since the Earth was created. And what we have done since then, we did pretty good. Humans adapt. They're smart and resilient. And this is what we're doing. We are investing in new energies. We are protecting our forests, and we're protecting our water. And we have been adapting so far, and we're going to adapt even better. There is no question that we need to clean our act and look after our environment. But we should not stop living, and we need to look at other countries and see where we can help them and make money and invest in better, newer energy supplies.
Thank you. We have time for one more question before our closing statements. With the Greens currently polling around 9%, the chance of them forming government is slim. With the other two parties close in the polls, which of the major parties would the Greens prepare to support in a minority government?
You know, what's really neat about that is that the Greens are polling 10% in ridings where we don't even have candidates. We're polling as high as 40% in some ridings. We have a lot of winnable seats, but again, this was what I wanted to say in my closing statement. We're not going to form government. We get that. But you just heard me say a minute ago, we have things in common with Marina's platform. We have things in common with the NDP. We've worked with them before. We weren't happy with the Clean BC Act. We think it could have been a lot better, but kind of blew our wad there. Yeah, we'll work with anyone. Wherever a good idea comes from, that's where we need to find it. Like I said earlier, the Jane Philpott model from the federal Liberals, that's a good idea. There's no pride in saying to somebody, good idea, I'm with you. Whether it's left or right or from somewhere else, we have a really neat opportunity right now in BC, 15 seconds, because we've got a bunch of winnable Green ridings and we've got 4 or 5 really strong independents. We could have representation like we have never seen in British Columbia. This is a very exciting election.
Okay. I'm not sure I see what the question is, but client-centered approach to healthcare is decades old. What dollars would be prepared to be spent for more home and community care that is needed? So I think we're going to go with Dana starting.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear on the question, but huge investments are being made in training doctors and medical professionals by the BC NDP, as I mentioned before, and I will work to continue those investments as your MLA, because I think we do need to look at treating people where they're at and getting them the care that they need when they need it. Thank you.
Marina.
I'm not sure if this question refers to our patient-first approach, which will not require new investment. What it will require is the implementation of funding following the patient. So in this situation, the hospitals and other facilities will be paid based on number of patients they treat and number of procedures that these perform. This will incentivize our hospitals to treat as many patients as possible. So this will slash waiting times and improve quality of treatment.
David.
Yeah, it's hard to give a dollar figure on that. I don't really know that it's even possible. Starting with the community health hubs that we talked about earlier, I mean, getting all the services in one place is a huge step in the right direction to getting care at home. If you have all the practitioners available in one roof, within a short distance from your house, you're not going to and from specialists and labs and things like that for one particular malady. We do support access to comprehensive care, both in-home and at care facilities for seniors and persons with disabilities. Now, this platform is entirely costed. It's all in there, but again, that particular line item, I'm sorry, I don't have a dollar figure for you.
At this time, we're going to give the candidates a chance to make a closing statement. That we're giving them, in the guidelines said 2, but the slide says 3, so we're going to give you 3 minutes to make your closing statement. So again, rotating the order, Dana, could you please start us with your closing statement?
I don't think I need 3 minutes for this, but this election is a very important election, probably one of the most important ones, certainly in my lifetime. And I think one of two parties is going to, I know one of two parties is going to form government after October 19th. And I think you can, the choice should be clear, I think, to most people. There's one party that believes in science and believes in climate change and believes that the challenges that we're facing are real and that vaccines don't turn us into magnets. So I think the choice is clear. Let's use our heads when we're voting, and I look forward to your support. So thank you.
David.
Don't have a page for this. This is a change election, make no doubt. I mean, we've seen a particular party that didn't exist 2 years ago surge in support. We don't really know what to expect, but we can expect that there will be high voter turnout at the polls, and I think that's great. The last election, we had about 50% turnout, and half of them voted for the party that formed a majority government. That ain't good representation, folks. I want to acknowledge again this moment we're having together. Whether we agree or not isn't the issue. The fact that we're doing this, the fact that we're exercising our rights and we're trying to find out more about the issues is incredibly important. And I do feel that this kind of event brings us closer. It makes us find common ground. There may have been something that I said to a conservative in the room, and they go, huh, that makes sense. Maybe not. When you're voting, you're going in there with power. That's the one thing you have when you vote. And when you're in that booth, it's just you and the pen and the names in front of you, and you are exerting power. You're not giving it away. What you're offering to the politicians is responsibility. They often take power, or they expect you're giving it to them, but they're not. You're giving responsibility. You're giving accountability. Demand that. Demand that from your elected reps, whether they're municipal, provincial, or federal. Demand that responsibility, that accountability. Don't let them come back and make excuses to you. Don't let promises sit and slide. Greens don't get elected by accident. We work 2 or 3 times harder than our competitors who are well-funded. I've told you before, I'm sure of it, that I'm driving about 1,000 kilometers a week right now. I'm lucky I have an electric car. I am trying to get to every corner of this riding and meet as many people as I can, hear as many perspectives as I can. And it's not easy. We've been given a very difficult riding. You guys can attest to that. It's not easy getting from Port Renfrew to Mill Bay and back to Metchosin in one day. But we're doing it. This election, I think you should allow yourself a little reflection, allow yourself some grace, and vote for what you want, not against what you don't want. Vote in favor of a party, of a politician, not against one. Juan de Fuca-Malahat is a brand new seat. There's no incumbent. We're not replacing anyone. One of us will be the first MLA in the riding of Juan de Fuca-Malahat. Here's the thing. If you don't vote for what you want, no one's going to come along and hand it to you. You've got to seize it. Vote for what you want or you will never get it. Vote for a party with principles, not a party with promises. Vote for a party with principles, not a party with slogans. Vote Green. Please vote for me. And vote for me because I will work for you. Thank you.
Marina.
I take personal responsibility for how things are going in this province. Because I was comfortable, I loved my work, I worked hard, and I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay attention when things started slipping out of hand. I didn't pay attention when things are spinning out of control. Until things became so bad in all aspects of our life. Just think for a moment. What is better today than it was 4 years ago, than it was 7 years ago? When things are come to crime, to drugs, to worsening healthcare, to crumbling infrastructure, what is getting better? Nothing. The only thing that is growing in this province is provincial debt. You are the ones who is paying this debt. Both my opponents avoid talking about money, but money pays for everything. We all live our lives paying for what we need. And both of the parties avoid talking about our crumbling economy. So I am running because the economy has to pay for everything. For our healthcare, for our social programs, for everything, for our education. And we can't squeeze any more money and drive people into poverty to pay for these things. So at some point, we need to vote Conservatives because we have to pay for things and we can't drive this province into worse debt. Thank you.
That concludes this evening's formal session, but I believe the candidates will be available for your questions and interaction in the hallway outside. I remind you that we have to leave the premises at by 9 o'clock, but I'd first like to thank the candidates for them spending the time, and I'd like to thank you. It's an incredible amount of dedication just to run for office. And I think on behalf of all of us here, we really appreciate your time and effort and how it's upset your lives, but for something you believe in. We really congratulate you for that. And finally, I want to thank you. You are the interested parties in Sooke who want to hear more about what our issues are, what each party believes, and what the visions are for the future from the candidates. So thank you for attending this evening. It's very encouraging for us who organize it to see you here. And I want to thank again Deb Schenk from the Chamber of Commerce and my fellow SMBI members and the technical staff who have recorded all of this, who have provided the facilities, and we thank the high school for providing this auditorium that we can use this evening. Drive safely, get home safely, and enjoy the next 33 minutes if you want to stay here.